Welcome to the National Civic League 72nd Annual All-America City Awards, spotlighting communities around the U.S. that are working to improve equity and resilience. I am Doug Linkhart, the president of the National Civic League, and in the next few days are all about you and the important work you are doing in your community. We congratulate you and look forward to celebrating you over the next few days. To those who attended virtual roundtables or finalist presentations today, thank you for coming to share and learn with us. During this opening ceremony, we will introduce our amazing All-America City finalists. Then we'll be hearing from Patty Garrett, Mayor of the All-America City of Decatur, Georgia, and Chair of the National Civic League's Board of Directors. Finally, we will be joined by today's keynote speaker, Dr. Gail Christopher, Executive Director of the National Collaborative for Health Equity. But first, let's announce this year's finalists.
Every year, the National Civic League recognizes 10 communities across the country for the All-America City Award. This award recognizes the community's ability to bring residents, organizations, and government together to solve the challenges in their communities. Communities of all sizes from across the country have won. The 72nd Annual All-America City Awards feature 20 finalists that are building equitable and resilient communities. The 2021 finalists are Barberton, Ohio; Bellevue, Washington; Carlisle, Pennsylvania; Dallas, Texas; El Paso, Texas; Inglewood, Colorado; Evanston, Illinois; Fitzgerald, Georgia; Fort Lauderdale, Florida; Fort Wayne, Indiana; Kansas City, Missouri; Livermore, California; Miami Lakes, Florida; Miramar, Florida; Morrisville, North Carolina; Richmond, Virginia; Southfield, Michigan; Spokane, Washington; Sumter, South Carolina; Wheat Ridge, Colorado; Congratulations, finalists. You represent the best in American civic innovation and give us hope for the future.
What a great group of finalists. Your commitment to building equity and resilience is an inspiration. We welcome you and the spirit and energy you bring. These are certainly challenging times, and we want to honor you for the work you continue to do in your communities to recover from a global pandemic, respond to calls for racial justice, and safeguard democracy. This event happens because of the collaboration and hard work of many people. We thank our sponsors, particularly Southwest Airlines, the official airline of the All-America City Awards for the 13th year, the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, CGI Communications, ICMA RC, and our other sponsors and supporters that are listed in your program. Let's also give a big thank you to our application reviewers, our youth award interviewers, and the jury. And lastly, but not leastly, a special thanks to National Civic League staff, especially Rebecca Trout, for making all this possible. Although we're virtual this year, we hope you use these next few days to attend workshops, read about your fellow finalist communities, explore the booths, and enjoy the talent showcases. In the words of people who have been part of the All-America City Awards before, we hope that you fall in love with your community all over again and are inspired to do even more in the coming years to make it better. I'd now like to introduce the National Civic League's Chair of the Board of Directors, Mayor Patty Garrett. Patty Garrett was elected to the Intercity Commission in 2009 and has served as mayor since 2016. She serves as chair of the board of the National Civic League and on the board of the Georgia Municipal Association, where she is a member of the Federal Policy Council and the Environmental and Natural Resources Committee. She's interested in health policy, particularly related to access to healthy foods, equity, environmental policies, active lifestyles, and the role of local government in fostering healthy, equitable, and vibrant communities. The National Civic League has benefited from her board service and now her leadership. Thanks so much, Mayor Garrett, for being with us today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and just watching the video presentation really piques my interest in what a great group of cities that are participating this year. And I always get inspired and then want to go visit those places. So that's another great part of this. So welcome everyone. It's really a pleasure to serve on the board as board chair of the National Civic League. The All-America City Award has been recognized as the best in civic innovation for over 70 years, with over 500 communities receiving the designation. And Decatur, Georgia was thrilled to be recognized as an All-America City in 2018. And the award has served to solidify our culture of engagement, collaboration, and has brought the community a sense of real pride. This year, the All-America City Awards are recognizing communities that have worked to improve equity and resilience. The need for equity and resilience became even more obvious in 2020 as communities have dealt with a global pandemic and social unrest in response to incidents of racism. This year's finalists have shown that those communities with more equity and resilience have been more successful in combating the pandemic and making the needed changes to improve the racial equity of law enforcement and other city services. This year's 20 finalists have proven the strength of their civic capital, the formal and informal relationships, networks, and capacities that they use to make decisions and solve problems. And they've provided examples of community-driven projects that have adapted and transformed the communities to be more equitable and resilient. We come together over the next few days to recognize these communities' efforts and to learn from your successes. I'd now like to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Gail Christopher. Dr. Christopher is an award-winning social change agent with expertise in the social determinants of health and well-being and in related public policies. She's known for her pioneering work to infuse holistic health and diversity concepts into the public sector program and policy discourse. Dr. Christopher recently retired from her role as Senior Advisor and Vice President at the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, where she was the driving force behind the America Healing Initiative and the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation effort. Dr. Christopher also served as Kellogg's Vice President for Program Strategy and worked on place-based programming in New Orleans and in New Mexico in 2015. She received the Terrence Keenan Award for Grant Makers in Health. She chairs the board of the Trust for America's Health. And in 2019, she became a senior scholar with the George Mason University Center for the Advancement of Well-Being. Dr. Gail Christopher also became the executive director of the National Collaborative for Health Equity in November 2019. We had a chance to visit just a few minutes before we started this, and we look forward to continuing our conversation offline about health equity and some of our interests that lie very much in the same path. So welcome, Dr. Christopher. I look forward to the conversation with you and Doug. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Mayor Garrett.
I'll let you know two things about Dr. Christopher, shown by her interest in this program. One is when I asked her to speak, she said she didn't want to lecture. She wanted to have a conversation, which I think is quite characteristic of Gail's history. And secondly, when she retired, she did not retire. She is not gearing down, she's gearing up. I'll tell you that. So thank you so much, Dr. Christopher, for being with us today. And by way of conversation, I've got a couple of questions to ask you and love to hear your thoughts for our audience. And some of those members of our audience may not be familiar with your work. Can you speak about your career in health equity and racial healing?
I can. First of all, thank you for inviting me and congratulations to your finalists. Just watching that video took me back to my days as a reviewer, where I was there live with the communities, and the energy that they brought is almost palpable in that video. So congratulations to everyone. And thank you, Mayor Garrett, for your leadership and for that very generous introduction. My career spans more decades now than I care to count, but it really started with a personal experience of loss. I experienced what is called infant mortality, in the sense that I lost my firstborn child, and she was only a few months old. I learned through that experience that I was one of millions of women of color who lose their infants, and also, there are many mothers who die in childbirth. And that sort of launched me on a journey to find out why. Why do African-American mothers have such disproportionate and continuously so incidents of infant mortality and loss? And that led me into an understanding of holistic health and well-being, and the importance of access to quality foods and environments that are nurturing and supporting, and really opened up my understanding of the social determinants of health. So that trajectory has taken me from clinical practice to designing social programs to really caring about the role of government. Government is important in our lives, and as the bashing government movement, expanded, I did some work with the Alliance for Redesigning Government and the Institute for Government Innovation at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. And from there, more focus on policy at the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, and then into philanthropy. I had been the recipient of grants for decades, and then I found myself in a leadership position to be able to give grants. But always that thread of trying to improve health outcomes. For years we used euphemisms. We called it place matters, your zip code determines your health, but we finally evolved to a place where we can call it for what it is, which is this adherence to a false ideology of the hierarchy of human value. The lie that some people are just more important than others, have more value, more innate worth. That's a long way of saying racism, but it also opens the door to many other isms. It gives permission to other and to exclude and to deny opportunity and to dehumanize. So even though it's been a varied career, it's always been with the intention of eliminating the effects of racism. And the last decade or so, it's really been focused on eliminating racism itself, the permission to devalue some people and to destroy their lives.
Thank you, Dr. Christopher. It's kind of frustrating, I think, but for many people, this has been an issue that has really been on the front burner for the past 12 or 14 months. Since the death of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd, many people in America have awoken to the issue of racism and responded. And I know there are some good parts and maybe not so good parts about that, but give us your reflections on where we are at this moment in time.
Well, thank you for that question. I gave a speech this weekend and it was really wrapped around this moment, right? There's no question that the level of awareness, the level of mobilization, civic mobilization and engagement on this issue is probably unprecedented, both within our country and around the world. So this is what you might call a watershed moment, potentially. And our challenge now is to leverage this moment in strategic ways. Of course, whenever you have a watershed moment on an issue that could be as divisive as this one, you do have backlash, you do have division. But the majority of Americans, and that's the good news, the majority of Americans understand that this is a legacy that we as a country need to face, and we need to heal, and we need to transform ourselves. And so I think we're at a critical moment. I am so proud of the current administration in Washington, putting equity right in the center of its platform. It is the first time you've ever heard a president in his inaugural address be very explicit about these issues. And so this is a moment, but it's a moment where the work of the National Civic League, the model that we have in the All-America City Awards, it's a moment where we must come together. We must transcend our selfishness, if you will, our inability to communicate and to relate across differences. And we must develop the skills and the capacities to take this country to the next level. And I say with all sincerity, America owes this to the world. Our meteoric rise to prominence, economic prominence, was based on the loss of so many lives. We must do this work. We must model for the world that it is possible for us to face our past, heal through it, and transform ourselves into a country that actualizes our aspirational tenets that all are truly created equal. It's a journey. It's a journey that we simply must do if we're going to survive as a country. And it's a journey that if we do it, we can say to the world that it is possible to do this. Because even though we have a unique brand of racism in this country, racism is a problem throughout the world. And so the moment for me is a moment of tremendous opportunity. As you know, I put a lot of energy into designing various programmatic strategies for this, the most recent of which is the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation work. And it's happening on college campuses and in cities around this country. Federal legislators are taking a look at it. Barbara Lee has proposed a resolution. Senator Cory Booker has supported it in the Senate to create a U.S. Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation process. Just today, the American Constitutional Society, a group of lawyers, thousands of lawyers across the country, made this the center of their platform going forward, looking at how to reform our legal system to undo the legacy of racism. So this is a moment where we can be clear-eyed and determined. And I think it's an unprecedented moment in our history. And I'm really excited to be able to not be retired and to still be actively engaged in helping to lead this work.
Thank you so much. And those are really inspirational words. Gail, you've got a background in healthcare. Talk to us a little bit more about this past year and a quarter under COVID-19. And it certainly awoke many people to the health disparities that are out there. Are we better prepared now when this comes back around? And are there lessons that we've actually learned through this process, do you think?
We are somewhat better prepared in the sense of we won't be, as they say, gobsmacked or caught completely off guard. We have leadership now in the country that feels a sense of responsibility for all of us, and decided to manage this challenge. And I think that experience alone has given us the muscle memory of what we need in the event that things should resurface. So in that sense, we are better off, but we're not better off in terms of the structural inequities that led to such disparate impact, in diverse communities of color. The increased exposure, I love this new phrase that arose through the pandemic of essential workers, right? But these workers were there, on the front lines forever, but they were not considered essential. They were not paid adequately, nor did they have access to the child care and to the health care and to the affordable housing and the safe transportation and the healthy air to breathe. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, all social determinants, right? And as a result of those inequities, there was disproportionate loss and death and illness. And of course, all of that was over a burden, laid over a burden of chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease and obesity. And the obesity and the diabetes are all related to access to healthy food, access to safe places for movement, and the lack of access to healthy food. I learned recently that many of your major food providers or suppliers, in terms of their marketing budgets, they spend in excess of 80% of their budgets marketing poor nutrient, calorie-dense foods to communities and within communities of color. So we have a lot to do to actualize, fairness and justice when it comes to health and the opportunity to be healthy. We have created at the collaborative that I lead an interactive web program that is called HOPE, and it speaks to health and opportunity for equity. And states and locales can use it to really have a quantifiable approach to providing those opportunities that will expedite, health and well-being. So the simple answer to your question is, always yes and no. We are better off, I think, as a public health system. We're not anywhere near where we need to be. And I'm hoping that this administration will invest. I am directing a commission now for the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, whose intention is to transform public health data systems. Data creates our narratives. Data provides the information that determines what we do. And one of the things that was exposed in the pandemic was our woefully lacking public health data systems. We don't even know how many people, fell victim to COVID-19. Not really, our systems are just weak. And so I'm hoping that there's an African proverb that says to stumble is not to fall, but to move forward faster. I'm hoping that we will move forward faster in redesigning our systems with an intentional focus on equity and well-being.
Okay, thank you. What keeps us inspired at the National Civic League is that we work with communities all around the country that are doing great things at the local level. It's easy to get discouraged looking at the federal government and sometimes at the state level and not feel much progress. But I know that you have worked with cities throughout the country, and the Truth Racial Healing Transformation Project identified 14 communities for special focus just before you left the foundation. Are there examples around the country that you could point to of success on equity and resilience?
Yes, and I'm always impressed with what's going on in Buffalo, New York, and how the business community has stepped up, and the business community has stepped up, and they've also prioritized the vulnerability of young men of color in that work. Very exciting work. The city of Chicago has trained, I believe, over 500 people to conduct racial healing circles, to bring communities together. And I think the last count was over 3,000 people in the city have come together to deal with these issues in ways that respect and honor all of the participants. The city has a project where they've funded, they call it Healing Together. We Can Heal Together. Chicago Heals Together, I think is the name of it. Exciting work during the pandemic, using the virtual platforms to bring communities together and to empower young people through the city colleges to see this as their work, to develop career paths of bringing people together and enhancing civic engagement. The work in Selma, Alabama, and other places, the work in Lansing, Michigan, and Flint, Michigan. Oh my goodness, I am so excited to see that folks are recognizing that the framework, which leads with creating a new narrative. One of your winning cities or one of your finalist cities, Dallas, Texas, is a really strong TRHT city. And they've done some amazing work to investigate the narrative and to fill in the missing narratives about the diversity and the historic diversity of that city. So people are using the framework, the strategy, they're changing their local narratives, they're exploring their local histories and engaging their newspapers. They're deliberately bringing their communities together through racial healing and relationship building. And then they're taking the deep dive to look at the structures of inequity that have been driven by an intentional separation of people, an intentional legal structure and system that dehumanizes and devalues, and ultimately an economy that exploits. So those are the 5 pillars of the TRHT work. And communities across this country are encouraged. The Kellogg Foundation has a big section on their website to offer guidance for any communities that might want to use this approach, because our goal is transformation. Our goal is healing and transforming our communities into places of equity and resilience. So I'm so excited to learn more about your finalists. And I wouldn't be surprised if many of those cities are not influenced by or part of the National Truth Racial Healing and Transformation work.
Terrific. Well, one last question, Gail. As you point out, we have a lot of great communities on the platform this week. We have 20 finalist communities that are working on equity and resilience and making some progress already. What would be your advice to those communities going forward?
Well, first of all, I would applaud and appreciate the leadership that's already there. My advice would be to not be naive in expectations, to know that we're not going to erase 400 years, in a year or two. So the first thing is to realize that this is a long distance run. It's not a sprint, and to recognize that there is power. So many people in this work, they start with a power analysis and they talk about other people having power. My most important message, I think, is to recognize the power that's within each of us. We have a reservoir of power, and we can tap into that power to really be catalytic forces for change. So one piece of advice I always give advocates and leaders: never underestimate our power. Our power, though, is released or ignited by a clear vision of where we're going. This is an age of a lot of what they call anti-racism work, and that's a good thing. But I say to communities, it's not just what we're against. We have to hone in on what we're for. And what we're for is driven by a clear vision, a clear set of expectations of where we're going. So I think to all the communities that are doing this work, I would say let's start with a collective vision of a future without racism. If we don't believe that America can truly have a future without racism, we will never create that. We have to believe it, we have to envision it, and that's the vision that will draw out our energy and our power. It's the vision that will enable us to create and manifest the very thing that we see and believe is possible.
Well, thank you so much, Gail. You're truly an inspiration to all of us, and our country is better off for your work. So thanks so much. And we look forward to continuing to converse with you over the years. And I would recommend to folks to look at the Kellogg website. There's some great information and resources there on truth, racial healing, and transformation, and also to your website, the Collaborative Fair Health Equity. And congratulations on leading that effort now.
Thank you. It's been my honor to be with you, and I'm a fan, and I know that you all are a bright light in the midst of all the confusion and darkness in this country right now. You're showing that it's possible to come together and to have hope, and indeed to heal communities. So thank you very much for the work that the National Civic League continues to do and has done for so many decades.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Gail Christopher has been a friend to the National Civic League and All America Cities for a long time, and we appreciate your continued support and friendship. Finally, want to give some important information for attendees. In the event platform, you'll find the schedule for the next few days. We keep the jury presentations on schedule. They start tomorrow at 12 noon Mountain Time. Anyone want to win a Southwest airline ticket? To do so, we encourage you to attend as many workshops as you can, because at each one, your name will be taken for a chance to win a Southwest Airlines ticket to be given away Wednesday night at the end of the awards event. There are also opportunities for Southwest tickets throughout the Civic Action Fair and Cultural Entertainment Showcase, and also active participation on the event platform will result in a few other surprises as well, in addition to ticket vouchers. Southwest Airlines is turning 50 this month, and will be celebrating with their employees and communities across the country to inspire 1 million acts of kindness. Whether delivering a meal to a neighbor, cleaning up a park, or sharing a note of encouragement, they believe community is more than a place. It's at the heart of what brings it together. I might note, we have seen so many great examples over this past year of residents, neighbors, and businesses pulling together to help each other. It has truly been heartwarming. Southwest invites you to join the call for a kinder world by visiting southwest50.com to take the Southwest Kindness Pledge and learn more. We'll also be giving away special gifts throughout the event, in addition to the free tickets I mentioned earlier. So have fun, explore the great content, learn as much as you can, watch as many presentations as possible, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.